Welcome to the Q&A live at the Counts with the Meltdown. Please put your hands together for this incredible band. So good to have you. How did it feel?
Yeah, that was fun.
It's good to be back, Rad. It's good to be back.
It is.
We've got some questions coming in. If you'd like to ask a question, you can head to Slido, that's Slido, and pop in LATC for live at the Counts, or pop your question into the chat. But I'm going to start. Simon, I wanted to ask you if you remember the first time that you heard the music of Ray Charles.
Oh, I can't think of an exact moment, but I was pretty lucky that I had sort of family friends that were listening to some great R&B music. They had records like Al Green and Ray, and just sort of older soulful and jazzy music. And I must have been rifling through their record collection maybe when I was about 12. And I think, I was like, can I have this? Can I have this? Can I have this? Can I have this?
I used to do exactly the same thing with my parents' records. They had a huge collection. Dad, mainly blues. Mum, every single Kiss record ever released. No joke. Mum's like proper Kiss army. So, it's quite diverse listening. But you saw Ray perform live, right?
Yeah, at the Melbourne Blues Festival, it was about 100 years ago. But I mean, he was really frail, and he had to be helped onto the stage, and he kind of had like this Las Vegas kind of slick band, but he was, as soon as he got to the microphone, it was just Ray. It was amazing. He was an incredible performer.
And what do you think it is about his music that resonates so much with you?
I think it's his spirit that comes through the music. He's like such a soulful singer. There's a lot of pain in his voice, but there's a lot of sort of hope and inspiration in it as well. It's somehow joyous and sad at the same time.
It's also kind of timeless, right? Like it could have come out last week and we'd still, it's music forever and for all ages and all people, I think, regardless of where you're from. There's just something about that repertoire where we all just feel it and go, yes, this is exactly what I needed to hear tonight. But let's talk about the Meltdown. So you've been together for a few years now, but the story of how the band got together kind of has an origin sort of from a club, not too different from this one.
Yeah, back in Bennett's Lane, which was in the city, and it was a famous jazz club for a year. How long were they together? 20 years, 25, 30 years? And it was just one of those things that we went in there and played the music for the first time, and it was a pretty amazing experience. The music just sort of it kind of carries itself in some way. It's sort of like they're just so much fun to play the songs.
Mm-hmm. And so a lot of you, I know from a lot of other projects as well, Eamon, you perform with Jazz Party, and I've seen Tom performing with the Putbacks and Bombay Royale, and Hugh in projects like Stock and B for Chicken and a whole range of other projects. And maybe this is something a few of you might want to answer, but what do you think you need? What are the secret ingredients that go into creating a really beautiful musical collaboration?
The fear of the microphone shall be overcome.
I honestly think it's a bit of a mystery. I mean, there's things you can get right, like get good musicians on the stage and write good music and all that sort of stuff. But like some bands have just like this little spark of magic in them, and there's no you can put together a bunch of great musicians and it just doesn't work. And sometimes you put together great musicians and it just magically does. I don't know what it is.
Magic.
Magic. Yeah.
Indeed. Does anybody else want to talk about incredible collaborations?
I guess like just being open to, going into uncharted territory and experimenting with what you can do together, but listening like to each other and like being open. Yeah, just I think that's what I found through collaborating and just allowing people to find the song when you're working together and give them like Berkey was talking about, giving each other the space, like talking about the Beatles, like how they really gave each other time to like find those tunes, you know, so that, I don't know, maybe that's part of it, but yeah, it is a total mystery to me.
Yeah.
But sometimes you put bands together and there's sparks flying all over the place, but I think it comes down to like your influences and you know, like you gravitate towards people who you can kind of sense what they're into, and you just know it's going to work. I don't know.
Yeah, well, it's a conversation, right? It's just instead of talking, it's with your instrument, like as cliche as that sounds. And if there's a spark between you, I guess that's the same with any kind of human connection, like marriage, or, you know, if you gel with people at work or not, there is totally just that invisible force that makes it magic or not. But I think we all agree that these fellas as a combo really have that kind of special energy that just makes the songs just sound really great. So speaking of the band and the Meltdown, you're working on a new record at the moment. I really want to say that even though tonight they've put on this special Ray Charles repertoire for us, I really urge you, if you haven't already, to please check out their original music on Bandcamp, because it's really sensational. And I can't wait to hear the new stuff. So please, Simon, tell us about it.
Well, it's been a long process. Obviously, we sort of would get into a bit of motion behind it, and then it was another lockdown and another lockdown. So it's been done very differently to how we've done other records, where we've done the whole record in 2 days or 3 days. This one's been done over nearly 2 years.
Wow.
And because I was stuck in my backyard and being an overachiever, I thought it'd be worth building a recording studio in the backyard during the lockdowns, and that's where we've done a lot of the record, which has been really satisfying, but I guess the proof will be in the pudding at the end of it all. But yeah, it's just I'm looking forward to. I'm supposed to hand it to the label at the end of this month, and then I'm going to the Bahamas.
Nothing like a deadline.
Yeah.
Are you really going to the Bahamas?
No. Maybe like Frankston. Maybe.
I would almost believe that, knowing your other life, is that you're actually a pilot.
Is it? Yes, that's possible.
Okay, we won't explore that any further. We've got an audience question here. How, if at all, has technology changed performing this type of music compared with, say, 50 to 60 years ago? Has technology changed anything?
I don't think so.
Not much.
Well, I was thinking about that because we're playing this music, like we're used to doing it at Bennett's with no PA. And
Jazz Lab now.
Jazz Lab. And like for me, it's really different, like hearing, like this is like club music, so it's sort of, it's a different thing now that it's like getting pumped out through those speakers at the front maybe, but like, I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing, but it's sort of I don't know.
Most of the gear that's on stage was invented by the time Ray Charles was making music.
Yeah, true.
My trumpet's probably older than Ray Charles. That's
most of
definitely
us are
older.
too, or it feels like that.
I've got another audience question here, which I think is for Hugh. What kind of sounds can you get just from the snare drum? It's like a drummer masterclass. I love it.
Yeah, I mean, you can get a lot of sounds from any drum. I think, like any instrument, you're trying to shape the sound to make it express what you are trying to express. But probably the snare drum is, I guess, particularly expressive. And I guess, yeah, in the some of the songs we were doing, I was kind of playing two hands on the snare drum or two sticks. So you have your cross stick sound, and then you're hitting it with the other hand. But then you can kind of hit it in different ways and also mute it in different ways. So you can kind of make it speak. And I mean, that's, the history of really the drum set it goes kind of back to one drum. Like that's what originally, it was used for communication, and so they would get different sounds out of one drum. So yeah, there's a lot of different sounds that you can get. I don't think I need to demonstrate them all.
I think you do. No.
Number one.
It's interesting when you're recording the drums as well, like depending on how hard he hits it or how, like I actually sent a message to him the other day about this as we recorded something live, and depending on the way he hit it, the snare sometimes gets this choked sound to it, or it can ring out, or it's a different pitch altogether depending on how you hit it. So they're quite a diverse instrument, and I'll leave the jokes about drummers alone at the moment. I'll just talk about the snare drum.
Considering you are actually a drummer as well, 'cause I've seen you play drums with Los Ragas, and you play piano like that and sing. I actually think that's criminal. It's insane amount of talent. But do you collect snare drums? Because, I know some drummers have like so many kits and so many snares for different sounds, or do you just have like your one favorite?
Most drummers will have a bit of an array.
Yeah.
Array. But yeah, you bring different sounds to different gigs. So you were talking about the original material that this band does. That is probably more of like a kind of bigger rock sound. So I would these are not my drums, but I would have probably a bigger drum kit. And probably different cymbals. The Ray thing is it's older. It's the sort of 50s, 60s thing. And he's sort of jazzy, so it's a bit jazzy. But part of the sound of that music, I think, is that it was, when jazz started getting influenced by rock and roll and vice versa. So there's this kind of middle ground, and it's part of that sound is jazz instruments are not kind of meant to be driven hard, but when you drive them hard, they get crunchy. And that's sort of the sound of that early soul and rock and roll, is it's crunchy because they're doing things that the instruments are not really designed to do. They're playing them really hard, and so they take on that gritty sound, which is really kind of raw and a really awesome thing about, I think, that music.
Yeah. And thinking about that in line with the last question about technology, most of those records and Ray Charles' music was all recorded to tape. And since then, the technology has changed, so people have been able to record digitally. But I think you'll find a lot of bands, especially here in Melbourne with that soul sound, people are still recording using tape, and albums that come out like Leon Bridges or other kind of modern soul records still use that same old technology because you just kind of can't beat it, right? Like the sound is really, it gives it that warm feeling that people really love. So there's a question here from Harry to the guitarist. It says to Tom, when did you start playing guitar and the music of Ray Charles?
I think I started when I was 12. Yeah. Yeah. I don't think it was like year 7, and I wanted to take up an instrument, and I really wanted to do saxophone, but I had to do clarinet at school, and which was cool. But I really wanted to play saxophone, but my dad took me just into the bedroom because he played music, and he showed me how to play Pretty Woman by Albert King, the bass line to that, and that was my first time I ever learnt anything on guitar. Yeah, but I remember seeing it at, like barbecues or whatever, people would play guitar, and I was like, oh my God, what is this sorcery? And yeah, so yeah, when I was about 12, but the music of Ray came later, I think. Yeah, I just heard it and it was like, oh my God, this is like the root of everything that I love, had the blues thing going on, but also the harmony, I just loved the way that the harmony moved, and and just had that soul so.
And did you ever get onto the saxophone?
I did, yeah, I got on the saxophone, and I played saxophone all through high school up until year 12. Yeah, but we hired a saxophone from school, so I never owned my own saxophone, but I always played guitar, that was happening at the same time. Yeah. So I think I learned a lot of playing a wind instrument, maybe
Yeah.
about phrasing or yeah, it definitely helped my reading, which a lot of guitarists like you don't have that when you're coming up, so it really helped that. Yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask you all also about some gig highlights, and I know a really special one was playing with Maceo Parker at Hamer Hall a few years ago. Can you tell us a little bit about that show?
Yeah, that was a huge honour. Obviously, to be considered for that, it was a little bit different for us because we had a few other, like some backing singers and stuff, but they wanted it to be a big band, so we had to kind of acquire a lot of great friends of ours and great musicians to comprise that unit, and it was fireworks. It was also kind of weird as well because Maceo Parker is an amazing artist in his own right, and but he was doing the Ray thing, so it's an amazing artist doing another amazing artist. It was a bit like a cover show, but in a weird kind of way. But it was still very cool, and he played a bit of saxophone and sang amazingly. Yeah, it was definitely one of the best gigs I've ever done. Super fun. Yeah.
And for me, I don't know music formally. I was never taught to read or to play music that way. So there was no chance I was ever going to play in a big band unless it was my own band, and they couldn't kick me out. So it was pretty good. We got a friend of ours to play piano because the piano parts were all dots on a page, and I was like, I don't know what that means. It's all hieroglyphics to me. And I just played the Hammond organ and sat in the corner and just listened. And the first time that we played as a group in the rehearsal, we did a rehearsal in the Baker. It was about 20-piece band by the time we put everything together. And they were all the original Ray Charles charts. Steve Sigmund, the musical director, had those charts. And when everyone fired up, I nearly fell off my chair. It was just the most incredible sound I'd heard, and I'd always wanted to do it. So they couldn't kick me out. It was great.
Yeah, that's incredible. And that was part of
Melbourne Jazz Festival.
Melbourne International Jazz Festival, which is actually on right now. So plug for them. I've got one more question which I'd like to ask all of you. Monash University, we have the Selman Cowan School of Music here, and there's a lot of people that come to the Counts shows and tune in who are currently studying music, and it has been a really difficult time for musicians over the last couple of years and for people studying music. So I'm wondering if you all could share any advice or words of wisdom for people who are just starting out in the music industry or maybe want to go into music and have a career change, because there's been a lot of that during the last 2 years as well. Everyone's pivoted to different roles. Any advice for those wanting to break into the music industry? Should we start with Eamon? We'll go this way.
I guess university and when you're young is a time when you're trying to work out what you want to do with your life. And I would imagine this would be a tough couple of years to go through university. And if you're anything like me, I didn't really listen to a lot of music these last 2 years. I couldn't sort of handle it. So if you were going through that at the same time as trying to choose what you wanted to do with your life, I would imagine that you might be thinking that you didn't want to play music. So I don't know. I just give yourself a break and just keep doing it, because it's not always going to be this terrible. We hope.
Yeah, and I really think that music has some pretty amazing powers, healing powers, and that's what I've found over the last couple of years is just leaning into actually just playing music and getting in touch with the instrument, even if it can't be with other people, and yeah, just don't worry about anything else. Just play music for the sake of it. I reckon that's probably my advice.
Yeah, I think most people who are musicians do it because they don't want to do anything else, because they're just drawn to music. So you don't really choose music as a career. It's like, hey, that's a smart decision. That'll be great. You do it because you don't want to do anything else, because music gives you something that you don't get in other places. So I think, I guess in line with what some of the other guys said, don't worry so much about, and this is probably crazy advice, don't worry so much about making money. If you're doing what you love, then you'll find a way of making it work. And as a lot of musicians will tell you, money isn't everything. So you can get a lot of fulfillment in the other aspects that music can give you. So if you love it, just keep doing it.
Yeah, good advice. we should have talked about this earlier. This is great. Should have asked you this 20 years ago. I think the most valuable thing is just playing with other people, and even though we haven't all been able to do that for the last year and a half, just any opportunity you can get, find some weirdos who want to play music as much as you do and do it as much as you can. That's the most important thing, I think. I don't know, maybe it's just a bass player thing, but playing by yourself is definitely not the same. So, yeah.
Yeah. Being I think playing with music, that's what it's all about. Connecting with. That's what I've missed this through all these lockdowns, is like connecting with people on that musical level, and being with your brothers and sisters and creating. I think it started happening for me when we just got together in a rehearsal studio and just wrote tunes. You just get better at it the more you do it, and just do it. Get a set together and book a gig. And put your stuff out there. You never know what's going to happen, I guess.
I never knew all these guys that were so intelligent and beautifully spoken. They're normally dribbling out both sides of their mouths in the band room. But no, I'd just say, I'm really lucky now that, because for a long time I made my living playing music as well, and that put a lot of extra pressure on me, and it didn't work for me. And through my whole career, I've never really been afraid to go and lay some bricks or really do anything else just to make sure that I could pay the bills and not be too stressed about that. So, I don't feel that being a musician means that you're entitled to anything particularly special. And the reason this band's lasted so long is because it just works, and it's we're all really like-minded, and that doesn't always happen. Like Amon said, it can be challenged to find those people. So when you do, hang on very tight and really enjoy it. And I guess finally, just if you can get your abilities and how you're learning how to play, just get it to a point where you don't really have to think about it, because that's when it gets really good fun, when you're not actually aware of what you're doing and you're just really in the music. And that's I remember those moments. Well, maybe they haven't happened yet, but it's a very enjoyable feeling when you're just sort of in the whole thing. You feel like you're one thing rather than 5 or 6 different people.
I've got one more question. You can just shout it out.
I just wonder about repertoire. Sorry, English is a second language for me, because there's so many songs to play, right? Who decides who's a boss here, or it's a mutual decision what you play?
So the question is, who's the boss of the repertoire and who decides what the tunes are?
Yeah, no. Is repertoire actually in your own language? Is it French?
I think it's French.
French, yeah, it's French. Polish. Okay, it's not a Polish word. We just picked. We picked, I guess, a group of songs right at the start, and I guess the ones that I felt that I could sing was probably one of the, and they're all pretty frightening to sing, but we probably steered away from some really obvious ones on purpose, and just to pick some of the ones a little bit, but I mean they're all such good songs, so it doesn't really matter which ones you pick, they're great.
Except Georgia for your mom.
Yeah, that's right. My granny loves that song very much.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Please put your hands together one more time for the Meltdown. And that concludes this episode of Live at the Counts. Thank you for joining our Live at the Counts concert series. We'd like to say thank you to Monash University Performing Arts Centre's technical crew and staff for their incredible work. For information on future shows and more extraordinary live performances, follow @Monash PAC.